no holes. The seal also has countless smaller holes, scratches, and stains. Quite frankly, it looks disgusting, and yet it gets an A+. I've seen seals with B grades that are better quality than this. My point is that video game grading is not a science, and the ratings given to games are not an exact representation of the game's quality, and yet the rating is touted as the sole justification for why people are spending an extra $1 million on some of these games. Now you understand why it is so important to establish Wata as the utmost authority on video games, because it makes their ratings all the more valuable. Now, one final thing before we move on. If you knew you were about to create a bubble surrounding sealed video games, what would you do? Personally, I would start buying as many sealed video games as I could. This is Mark Haspel, one of the founders of Wata Games and the current chief advisor. He has been involved in the comic book collecting scene for decades, but was never active in video game collecting. But right around the time that Wata was formed, he suddenly started showing up at video game conventions, buying as many sealed games as he could. Not only that, but he would actively seek out and inquire about sealed NES games. More specifically, the popular ones such as Mario, Metroid, Mega Man, Castlevania, and Zelda. The kind of games we see being sold now for record prices. And remember, this was several years ago. His taste in video games seemed to align perfectly with the same games that would bring the most profit several years later. One collector stated, Mark Haspel was buying sealed 6-packs from a good friend of mine a year before Wata started grading games. Pat the NES punk also noticed Haspel collecting games at conventions.
In June 2019, I was a guest at a gaming convention. The weekend of the event, I noticed a small group of individuals who were hurriedly acquiring sealed and complete in-box games from vendors. At one point, I witnessed an individual who I later learned to be Mark Haspel returning to the Wata Expo booth while holding a stack of NES games. I did find it a little strange, but was unaware of any affiliation that person may have had with Wata, so I didn't think much of it at the time.
It's obviously not illegal for the founders of Wata Games to collect video games, and it's impossible to prove intent, but these examples just strengthen my opinion that they knew what was about to happen, and they were preparing for it. Now, before we get to the conclusion, I want to teach you about an event in history that might be relevant to what's happening right now. The great coin collecting bubble of the 80s. Believe it or not, this kind of crazy bubble surrounding a collectible has been seen before. Not to this extent, but still, this isn't a new thing. In the 80s, it wasn't video games, it was coins. PCGS is the world leader in coin grading, and on its website it tracks something called the PCGS 3000 Index. It's an index of the value of coins, similar to something like the Dow Jones. In the historical chart, you can see a massive spike occurring in the late 80s. After crashing, the price has still not recovered to levels seen 30 years ago, and this is without even considering inflation. So what caused this bubble? Well, according to an article posted on antiquesage.com, it was the development of slabbing and the introduction of third-party certification. Slabbing is where a grading company will take a coin, encase it in plastic, and give it a rating. Two grading companies were formed around this time, PCGS and NGC. The article goes on to state that the arrival of PCGS and NGC changed the industry nearly overnight. Now dealers, collectors, and investors could buy or sell slabbed coins sight unseen, because they all trusted the grades given by the major grading services. If you're beginning to get a sense of deja vu, that's completely understandable. This is literally the exact same thing that's currently happening with video games. The fact that people could easily and confidently purchase graded coins meant that they began to sell more and more. This led to the price going up. Investors began to take notice, and more importantly, even investment hedge funds got involved. Kidder, Peabody & Co., Merrill Lynch, and UBS all created coin hedge funds where they took in money from investors to invest in coins. This expanded the bubble even further. But the thing about speculative bubbles is that they always burst. The price cannot go up forever, and at the slightest hint that the peak has been reached, everyone sells. The ironic thing you need to remember is that people who buy collectibles in order to make money never actually intend to collect or keep them. So when the price starts to drop, everyone attempts to liquidate their assets as quickly as possible in order to not lose money. the market becomes flooded. But because no one is buying, the price gets destroyed. In the end, it's the suckers that came in late that lose their money. The bursting of the 80s coin bubble was a big deal, and hedge funds were inundated with lawsuits from people who had lost their investments. Merrill Lynch ended up paying back over $20 million to their investors. The FTC even stepped in to investigate what happened. And this is where things get juicy. In the Antiques Age article I referenced, it said that PCGS and NGC were the first third-party coin grading companies, but this is actually false. The first third-party coin grading company was NCI, Numismatic Certification Institute, which was founded in 1984. After an investigation, the FTC ruled that NCI misled customers about the value of coins. I want to read from an LA Times article written in 1989, and I want you to appreciate how amazingly relevant it is today, despite being 32 years old. The article reads, "By and large, it's grading and rarity that determine the value of a coin. Rarity is easy enough to establish. Grading is often a matter of opinion. It's for this reason that grading services came into being. Their purpose is to give an impartial rating to a coin, which virtually establishes a particular price. But what happens if the grading service misrepresents the grade of a coin, thereby increasing its value? That's the situation described by Bill McAllister of the Washington Post in regards to a recent decision by the Federal Trade Commission. The commission determined that overgrading coins was a deceptive and unfair act, prohibited by the 1914 law that created the FTC. Charged with this practice were two Texas-based corporations, Heritage Capital Corp. And Numismatic Certification Institute. Also named in the action were Steve Ivey and James Halperin, prominent numismatic figures. A consent order was signed agreeing to establish a $1.2 million fund for collectors who purchased the NCI-graded coins from Coin Galleries Incorporated of Miami. Heritage, Halperin. Those names sound familiar. Yes, it's Heritage Auctions and Jim Halperin. In the 80s, they were found guilty of illegally misleading customers about the value of coins and fined $1.2 million. From the 1989 FTC annual report, it states, Numismatic Certification Institute and its principals Steve Ivey and James Halperin agreed to settle charges that its representations and failures to disclose information misled customers to the value of coins certified by the company. An affiliate, Heritage Capital Corporation, also agreed to settle charges that it provided substantial assistance to a coin retailer, Certified Rare Coin Galleries, knowing that CRCG was misrepresenting the security and profit potential of its coins to investors. Under the settlement, defendants agreed to a permanent injunction, and Heritage and NCI agreed to contribute $1.2 million into a consumer redress plan for CRCG's customers. Another interesting thing about Jim is that in 1985 he wrote a book called How to Grade US Coins, upon which the grading standards of the two leading third-party grading services PCGS and NGC were ultimately based. Again, these are the two grading companies that Antiques Age cited as the most important factors in the coin bubble. There is a very strong case to be made that Jim Halperin is the single most responsible person for the coin bubble of the 80s. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but it kind of looks like he's doing exactly the same thing again 40 years later, but this time in video games. As I've said before, it's impossible to prove intent, but one thing you can certainly disprove is ignorance. Jim Halperin was extremely caught up in the 80s coin bubble and was so responsible that he was fined over $1 million. You don't forget something like that. He knows exactly how bubbles are formed. He's seen them before, which is why he would know exactly how to create them again. Remember, Jim Halperin bought the Super Mario Bros. Cart that sparked this entire game bubble. He is an advisor to Wata Games and, according to rumors, also an investor in the company. He is the founder of the auction house that these games have been selling on for record prices. It's too convenient that this one person is involved in every single piece of the puzzle when he has the kind of history that he has. This doesn't seem like a coincidence to me. The retro video game bubble cannot go on forever. At some point, it will burst. The question is when. There are a couple of scenarios that might make this happen sooner rather than later. The first is the release of population reports. In collecting, one of the things that drives up the price of an item is rarity. In every other realm of collecting, grading companies produce what are called population reports. These reports tell you exactly how many of any particular item have been graded by the company, along with their rating. So if I do a search for Action Comics #1 through CGC, a comic book grader, I can find out exactly how many are out there and at what rating. Population reports are standard practice because they allow people to judge the rarity of an item accurately and fairly before making purchases. But surprise, surprise, Wata Games keeps this information hidden from the public and refuses to let anyone know how many games of each type have been graded. So we really have no idea how many of each game are out there. When more games of the same kind become known, prices plummet. It has already started happening with some games. The best example is Spider-Man for the Atari 2600. In May of 2020, the first sealed Spider-Man was listed on Heritage Auctions. It was a 9.8 A++, the best rating you can get. It was mint condition, and it's such an old game that it's surely rare. It sold for $9,000, which in 2020 was actually still a decent amount of money to spend on a video game. But the funny thing about Spider-Man for the Atari 2600 is that it's not rare. It's not rare at all, even in mint condition. After this sale, Heritage was flooded with 9.8 A++ Spider-Mans. And when I say flooded, I really do mean flooded. With each sale, the price diminished. In April of 2021, a 9.8 A++ sold for $870. That's a decrease of over 90% in less than a single year. When people realize how common some of these games are, prices will be destroyed. And that's what Wata Games and Heritage Auctions are afraid of. Legitimate collectors have been complaining for the past 2 years, but unfortunately, none of them have substantial audiences, and they are essentially powerless against the forces that are driving this bubble. If you want to help make a positive change, you can send Wata Games some feedback by email, letting them know how appreciated it would be if they let us know how many graded games are out there. The release of population reports would be a good start, but Wata Games and Heritage Auctions also need to stop manipulating the market with their propaganda. Journalists don't even bother asking real collectors what they think about what's happening. They simply get sound bites from Wata and Heritage and allows them to inflate the bubble with hype, despite the obvious conflict of interest. I asked a couple of lifetime collectors what they think should happen, and this is what they had to say.
My name is Pat Condry. I'm a YouTuber, podcaster, but also a longtime video game collector since the late 90s. I've seen a lot of things in the game collecting world. What's happening right now with the graded sealed games market is something I could never, ever imagine. And it's a shame that the video game collecting hobby that I've been a part of for decades, and many others, including sellers as well, people that have helped grow this hobby of ours with passion, with knowledge, doing research, putting in the time and effort. This is the end result. The unfortunate end result is that this hobby that we all love has been perverted. It's been twisted to the ends of a small group of people to line their pockets. These are rich people getting richer, and they've stepped on and stepped over all the video game collectors, all the people that have sold the games, run video game shops, all the people on forums researching this illustrious and beautiful past history of video games. They've all been used. We've all been used now for the select few individuals to get richer. And it's a crying shame. It's probably too late, unfortunately. But in a perfect world, there should be full transparency and accountability when it comes to these video games. We should know if someone who helps run the auction house is involved in the buying and selling of the games that are being auctioned. We should know if the people grading the games are buying and selling these games themselves. It's unethical if they are doing so, and we should know that so we can stamp out bad behavior.
Now, how can this be avoided? Well, it's quite simple. If WATA would release and update population reports for all these items that they're grading on a regular basis, this should not be a problem going forward. This is a problem due to the fact that there is a lack of ethics and a lack of transparency in these markets. Collectors deserve better. You guys out there that want this to be a thing, rather than thinking from the standpoint that you're going to make money over the long term in this market, what you should be doing is demanding better from grading companies, from auction companies, from other players in the trade. You should be demanding ethics and transparency.
This bubble isn't just affecting sealed video games at the highest price points. The selling point of every single game has increased dramatically over the past 2 years, even for non-sealed games. Aspiring video game collectors who legitimately want to build their collections will get screwed, because the hobby will become too expensive to be viable. What's worse is that people are using the record sale prices in order to scam people. You can find cart-only Super Mario 64s for hundreds or even thousands of dollars on eBay when they are only worth $10. People with a lot of money and power have taken over collecting, and their thirst for money means we will all suffer. As someone who does care deeply about gaming, it honestly sickens me that these people have turned these cherished possessions into a means to gamble and speculate. And I hope this ridiculous practice of trying to extract profit from the suckers who buy the hype will end sooner rather than later. As a sign of appreciation, it would be amazing if you could go and subscribe to a couple of real collectors that helped me learn more about this. Go check out Pat the NES Punk and also Sean from Reserved Investments. These two gentlemen have been collecting for most of their lives, and we need more people like this who are not only passionate but are willing to tell the truth about what's happening. Also check out David Wilson's channel, as it really took some balls to be willing to let me know what he had heard. You can find the links to these channels in the description. Hopefully, you have learned something about how those in power can create speculative bubbles. Next time you see them trying to do it, make sure you call it out and let them know that we won't tolerate it. As always, thank you so much for watching, you legends. I hope you are having a fantastic day, and I will see you in the next video.
Hey y'all, Scott here. So, it's about that time. Let's have the talk.
Let's talk about birds, bees, hell, even sex. I've gotten frustrated with teaching the proper education professionally, and I've learned it all from this here book. So let's start with chapter 1, Luigi's Mansion. I gotta make some calls.
It's finally that time of the year. E3 2001 occurred from May 17th to the 19th in 2001 at the Los Angeles Convention Center, and then E3 2001. And this year for gaming as a whole had some of the most iconic releases of all time. Massive console launches like the GameCube, Game Boy Advance, Xbox. The PlayStation 2 was still in its first year on the market, and Sega finally did the right thing. Give up! Every couple of years, we hit one in the industry where everything happened. All the games released, new consoles launched, and the only year that I think even remotely matches 2001 would be 2013. But even then, I think overall, 2001 may have been the biggest year for video games of all time.
God, Scott, stop sucking the year off.
Well, let's dive into what occurred at E3 2001, and as per usual, I'll be rating each major company's presence at the show on a scale of 1 to 5 knee slaps. Let's start with a company that needs no introduction. About a few years ago, Nintendo 64, for 4 years, we did get some amazing games during this time. Against the launch of the Dreamcast and PlayStation 2, alongside all the titles coming out with the 10 times popular PlayStation 1. Dr. Mario 64, brace yourselves, wasn't gonna cut it. And looking back at the history of E3s, the past few years really felt like Nintendo was spinning their wheels. Other companies were pushing forward with new tech, and Nintendo was saying, "Nuh-uh, we have a new console." Alright, can we see it? The 64 was just kind of distant for a while now, but E3 2001 was Nintendo's first E3 show for not only the GameCube, but the Game Boy Advance as well. Yeah, read off that spiral notebook. This isn't a press conference, it's a book report. We're still in that era of press conferences where press conferences were press conferences, damn it. For some reason going on about how the GameCube has a shot against the competition via graphs. Well, this graph would have more value if you show me the games that would give it a shot against the competition. This conference had the theme of the Nintendo difference. What are you, a brand of paper towels? No, according to Nintendo, the Nintendo difference is this.
A nasty fetish for quality.
Hey guy, what's your fetish?
Well, quality, quantity, the pursuit of happiness, ass and chips. Satoru Iwata comes on stage just a year before he became president of Nintendo, discussing how games all look the same and really leans into the Nintendo difference. Now, over on Nintendo, in comparison, it's all about innovation and quality. They released this a month prior. Miyamoto comes out on stage and holy sh**, he's one hand in that bitch! Phil Spencer's company sent for translation and introduces the first game with the concept of trying to figure out what characters to bring to GameCube first.
Technicality.
Super Smash Bros. Melee revealed to the world with the opening cutscene and a short overview of the characters. They don't spend long on it, considering you get the general idea of what this is by reading the title. Melee's reveal will forever be one of the best E3 moments, and you can tell just how giddy and excited the audience is. Watching it now is like opening a time capsule, and whenever Samus appeared, everybody roared, and this was during a large gap between Metroid games. Zelda and Sheik were given a huge applause compared to one guy recognizing ice climbers. Scientists studied this man afterwards.
How does one man remember that much ice climber?
Melee was the Smash Bros. Series transition from a fun party fighter to a massive gaming event. The bombastic orchestral music, gorgeous graphical upgrade, iconic characters paired up with those who haven't seen the light of day in ages. Melee's reveal was the perfect introduction to GameCube, and also showed this console was hopeless. You practically launch a system with a game that invokes this kind of reaction and it gets third place. This marked a change in consoles. It was no longer enough to have the best exclusive games. You had to have multimedia features or a gimmick, and the GameCube had a counter. After Smash, we get a look at what's called the next in the Mario series. Ladies and gentlemen, the next in the Mario series. Now, I like Luigi's Mansion, but the way it was shown here was more like a joke. And I think a lot of critics had this feeling towards Luigi's Mansion when it first launched. The stigma that it was lame as shit. You're not getting a Mario platformer at launch, you're getting his drippy-nosed brother with a shop vac. As time went on, I think everybody's come to appreciate this game a whole lot more. But at E3 2001, the main thing Nintendo pushed with it was how it utilized the GameCube's capabilities. They showed off the controller, which Wavebird has a button layout from the wired one. Why do that? The game discs, which Nintendo bragged about being severely anti-piracy as a selling point.
Here's our product, and the best part about it is you can steal it.
The GameCube startup is shown prior to the Luigi's Mansion demo, and we get a demo for Luigi's Mansion, which again was created to show off the GameCube's capabilities. Dual analog control along with tons of elemental effects. It was impressive, no doubt, but the fact it wasn't a Mario game and was a Luigi game just made it kind of lame for many. It's pretty shallow that various people thought that way, but that's what the general consensus was at the time. And the way they showed it off here, well, fine. I think undersold the game, but even if it looked pretty graphically impressive. Interestingly, they state right after the demo how the Game Boy Advance can be used as a GameCube controller, but the way they talked about it implied it would work with Luigi's Mansion, which would have made sense. When you have the Game Boy Horror and the game to have a map screen on the Game Boy screen at all times would have been handy. But no, they just move on to more graphs and spec talk, which is very unlike Nintendo. What is like Nintendo is to show us something we can't have. The Panasonic Cube, the Japanese-only GameCube with a DVD player, was shown here for spice. They just kind of show it like this is for the Japanese market, so I don't think they ever really had plans to bring it over here. But they also had it on display at the E3 2001 show floor. If I had to guess, even if they were never going to sell it in the US, with DVD playing capabilities at the show, I think the GameCube was actually worth a damn. Yeah, you can play DVDs on it, you just need to be able to deadlift 400 pounds. Some developers are shown in a video talking about the GameCube, namely Silicon Knights, Rare, and Retro Studios, all showing off games that were barely real. Metrohead Raven Blade!
Yeah, sure, honey, I'm on the phone.
Rare had Cameo and Donkey Kong Racing, but titles like Metroid Prime, Eternal Darkness, and Star Fox Adventures were displayed, with Star Fox Adventures having the subtitle of Dinosaur Playground. This is awesome to see in the context of an actual press conference. So long, I've only known of the origins of Star Fox Adventures through articles or random trailers, but actually seeing it alongside Donkey Kong Racing and Raven Blade at E3 shows is pretty wild and gives a much better idea as to how these games were positioned back then. Next up, we have a brand new game from Nintendo. What the hell was that? Nintendo announced Pikmin as their next Pokemon in the sense that it may not make sense now, just you wait. quick demo is shown, and Miyamoto says that he got the idea of Pikmin from gardening.
You're selling a console!
The GameCube is set to launch on November 5th in North America, September 14th in Japan, and 2003 in Europe to the audible disappointment of the audience.
Liar!
It actually ended up launching on the 18th in North America. So let this one slide because this is a real end. Star Wars Rogue Leader, Raven Blade, Wave Race BS, NBA Courtside 2, Donkey Kong Racing, Animal Force for GameCube. They announced this a month after the game launched on the Nintendo 64 in Japan. Metroid Prime, Mario Kart for GameCube, just using Smash Brothers character models and go-karts. Mickey for GameCube.
Alright, the delay was worth it.
Ending things on that infamous Zelda demo. Realistic Ganondorf fighting, which 1 year later, we got a puppet showing head. Why wasn't any of this sprinkled throughout the press conference? Instead we got,
Did you know the GameCube is going to do well?
well, if you showed me Mickey for GameCube earlier, that wouldn't be a question. There's quite a lot to like about this showing, though interesting to note, Nintendo barely talked about the Game Boy Advance. For that, you'd have to check out the show floor. This giant screen saying, fun fact, to ensure innovation, we created the strongest and most successful exclusive game development resources in the world.
That's not a fact, that's just smug.
I love this rotating actual GameCube logo and the Game Boy Advance demo unit showing games like Mario Kart Super Circuit, F-Zero Maximum Velocity, Wario Land 4. This was a damn good show. Though their presentation seems better on paper because you can actually watch it.
And more information will be on display when our Space World exhibition
Brings me right back to economics class. It may have felt like there were a lot of games, but it was primarily just Smash Brothers, Luigi's Mansion, and Pikmin. Everything else was just sort of thrown in a scissor reel. They still did a good job impressing, and that's more evident by taking a look at the show floor, though Nintendo just didn't show much that clawed people away from the PlayStation 2, unfortunately. Yeah, Smash Brothers looked amazing, but did that make up for the relative lack of third-party support? To some, yeah, and I think something big Nintendo proved this E3 was a massive change to their software output. That slowed down to a crawl on Nintendo 64. With the GameCube, they showed off a ton of exclusive games in development, most of which came out within the first year or two. Nintendo in 2001, keep it up. Well, let's take a breather in the form of E3 2001 memorabilia. These Activision 02 hats were given out. Activision 02 was a sub-brand they used for their sports games.
Cause sports require oxygen!
Well, that was fun. Let's move on to Sony. Let's see how good boy PlayStation did this year. They have the best-selling console of all time. Again, so why even try? Well, Kazurai just stepped off the golf course. It's crazy to see these iconic Sony executives there so long ago. Jack Tretton and Andrew House. The game's all here, which means their first announcement must be big.
First, we will debut a DVD wireless remote.
I stand corrected. Fucking huge.
Gran Turismo 3 gets a trailer, even though it's already been out in Japan. Jak and Daxter gets a trailer and demo, being a big holiday title for the PS2 that year, being voiced from PlayStation 2's Crash Bandicoot. But who gives a shit when the PS1 LCD screen is announced?
It says right here.
The PS1 is still a lucrative piece of Sony's business. Well, their show is all about PS2. They still intended on giving their first console some proper support. Sony's done that with all of their consoles. Even when the PS4 came out, Gran Turismo 6 exclusively on the PS3 a month later. They highlight that Square will remain exclusive to PlayStation consoles for the time being, which showcased how powerful this partnership was at the time. But with all this power and having the most successful console out at the time, that meant 10 minutes of EA Sports. Wow, Madden 2002's on the PlayStation 2. These mad sons of bitches finally did it! If this was the first Madden on PS2 or on this generation of game systems in general, I'd understand a gameplay demo for the conference. Final Fantasy X is shown. Like, my god, can you believe how fast they were pumping these games out at the time? Final Fantasy was practically a yearly series at this point. 9 coming out one after another made some sense with them all being on the same console, but 10 was for the PlayStation 2 and still released just a year after 9. They show a movie trailer for Final Fantasy, The Spirits Within. Then we dive into some other big PS2 exclusives. A long speech about Devil May Cry. Then on to Silent Hill 2, and finally a trailer for Metal Gear Solid 2, which was pretty much E3's darling game at this point. Grabbing everybody's attention, this was the killer app for the time. They end things off with some accessories, a PS2 network adapter and hard drive, along with an LCD screen, keyboard, and mouse for... I have never seen the PlayStation 2 marketed as a straight-up desktop PC. They say this is for email.
This!
They also show a bit of SOCOM, kind of to push the online capabilities of the console. With the Xbox moving over, that was smart to do considering that system was far ahead of the PS2 in terms of internet connectivity. Yeah, you know, Sony did have some of the biggest names on their side, and just looking at their booth, it's quite obvious not only did they have the biggest names, they had all the names. The amount of games on display for PS2 was staggering, and while Nintendo gave you a reason to check out their stuff, Sony gave you a reason to buy their stuff. The PS2 obviously had a tremendous future in front of it. We're even talking about streaming HD movies to the console. This, I may be a Nintendo we'll say fan. And while E3 2001 had a lot to make me happy, it was also obvious who was going to truly win this generation. Let's return to E3 memorabilia. Here we have an E3 2001 program giving out on the second day of the event. It's designed as if it's a magazine, featuring advertisements ripped right out of it, except they're actively begging you to check the booth at E3 out. This is absolutely fascinating. Reading articles detailing the announcement of Kingdom Hearts, which, debuted here, in a match made in gamer heaven.
If only.
Articles detailing Xbox and Nintendo's booths, giving attendees the motivation to keep it up, what other companies have brought to the show, whether it's games, hardware, accessories. There's interviews, conference maps, the Mario Awards. Nintendo of America would award their retail partners with Mario Awards based on categories like the catalog, magazine, promotions, in-store flyers. That gave good motivation to advertise Nintendo. See, we could put the PlayStation there, but we're neck and neck with Sony. Do worry. Hell, even advertisements for DVD scratch removal machines are here. This entire thing feels like I'm where I don't belong. Shuttle services and food options. Namco is outright begging for applicants. This is an awesome piece of E3 history that truly does give you the feeling of actually being there. It's a little big though. But what's this? Xbox? Who's that? While Microsoft had a presence at E3 2000, 2001 was the year of the system's launch and gave us a much better idea of what we could expect. The console design was finalized, making it much more consumer-friendly. Oh, come on, that's a choking hazard. And a little game called Halo, which was shown last year, went from a third-person game for PC and Mac to a first-person shooter launched exclusively with Xbox. This was always the go-to game for Xbox, as outside of that, it was a pretty mediocre show for them. They were still in the Peach Fuzz era of understanding gaming. They got it much more than other companies did, but this was their first console, so it was a to be expected. However, going against Nintendo and Sony, Microsoft had a few technical problems during the conference and nearly as many games on display. They had Dead or Alive 3 as an exclusive for launch alongside Oddworld Munch's Odyssey, racing games like Project Gotham and NASCAR Heat impressed, but Microsoft's booth was half Xbox and half PC gaming. The launch date of November 8th, 2001 for North America was announced.
Liar!
November 15th, and a launch in Japan would occur before Europe, which many people already knew was a mistake. The Xbox has famously never done well in Japan. Many of the Japanese market wouldn't take the Xbox, but Microsoft sure wanted them to, considering modern gaming was practically born in Japan. But all this did was waste Microsoft's time by launching it before Europe and piss off customers in Europe because they had to wait longer. All for a retail price of $299, which was fairly expensive, with the Xbox being the most powerful of the main three consoles and with Halo as the killer app. But it's pretty clear, without Halo, this would have been a pretty weak showing. But Microsoft did not swing with one of the most iconic launch titles of all time. That's gotta count for something. Grand Theft Auto 3. Yeah, there was quite a lot more to this E3 than just what the big three brought to the table. Namely, Rockstar brought the big three. I even have the final part of E3 2001 memorabilia, this sticker they gave out. Take a look at that. Okay. Duke Nukem Forever made another appearance, this time looking quite a bit different from the last time we saw it. This one showcasing how truly the game was going to be. Look at all these environments, characters, things to do, epic music. None of it ever happened. Sega was everywhere this year, making deals all over the place with the announcement that Dreamcast would be fizzling and Sega as a company would become a third party. Each console manufacturer made a deal to get a certain Sega franchise on it exclusively, most notably Sonic on Nintendo. The sheer amount of massive industry-defining games to come out of this E3 is unprecedented. Prior years felt like growing pains, but E3 2001 truly does feel like where E3 became E3 from there on out.
Wait a second. No, I'm just confused.
Recognizable. New Super Mario Bros. 3, just another new Super Mario Bros. Game, now with a multiplayer mode. Super Mario Galaxy 2, another phenomenal game, but it was even more linear than Galaxy 1. These stages truly feel like 2D Mario levels in 3D, which is exactly what the next game went for, Super Mario 3D Land. The first original 3D Mario game on a handheld was structured exactly like a 2D Mario game. I'd say it's more 2D Mario than 3D, which is perfect for the handheld form factor of the Nintendo 3DS. Play 3 levels, take 3 star medals headed throughout, throw the system in the backseat. All of these games, and the direction Nintendo was heading with Mario, it made sense and felt justified. But a year later, Nintendo released 2 new Super Mario Bros. Games within months of each other. New Super Mario Bros. 2 on the 3DS, and New Super Mario Bros. U on Wii U. This was when I think everybody had enough. New Super Mario Bros. Was great. I mean, I think the 4 stages of Great were awesome. But each one was just a new Super Mario Bros. For that console. It didn't stick out. Each game just felt like a variation wheel. And this iterative nature of Mario at the time caused everybody to look back in the past few years asking, what are we doing here? New Super Mario Bros. Had infected the entire Mario series. The 3D games were starting to feel more and more like the 2D ones, and we were getting less unique characters and art styles. It was all becoming just basic, generic Mario. These games were all blending in with each other. We weren't getting these massive 3D worlds with cool new characters and settings anymore. The Mario franchise was becoming less and less interesting because of it. New Super Mario Bros. Followed this very clean, basic template. Really want to take things in a new direction or introduce new types of worlds or enemies. It was always about bringing back fan-favorite elements from Super Mario Bros. 3 and World and making art style corporate-friendly. I'd invest in that. So while these games were all definitively good, they were too derivative of previous works to really stand out. There's a reason to play Mario 3 instead of World. There's pretty much no reason to play New Mario 2 instead of U. And with New Super Mario Bros. U launching with the brand new Wii U console, it didn't really take advantage of its unique features. Unless you count changing the fucking world as one. Can't do that in The Last of Us. Having a Mario game alongside console launch was nice. That's the best thing I can say about this game. But we were all waiting for that new 3D Mario experience for the system. 64, Sunshine, Galaxy, even 3D Land all took advantage of their respective consoles. They showed what they were capable of. 3D Land really validated the Nintendo 3DS 3D display. God only knows what they could do with the Wii U gamepad.
Seriously, God knows nobody else does.
The gamepad was famous for not having a purpose, so I think we were all looking towards a 3D Mario for Wii U to show us why. And we didn't have to wait long to hear about it, as on January 23rd, 2013, a Wii U Direct occurred with then Nintendo President Satoru Iwata basically telling Wii U owners to dear God like your systems. Even if they didn't have anything to show, Nintendo made it clear that a new 3D Mario done by the Galaxy and 3D team was in development for Wii U and would be shown and playable at E3 2013. My God, this game could be called anything. Super Mario Universe? Super Mario Universe again? The main idea I saw thrown around was a sequel to the Galaxy series, subtitled Universe, playing on the Wii U name because honestly, there weren't a ton of other options. Speculation ran wild up until E3 that June. Expectations were high and my virginity was nearing tornado siren levels. The E3 2013 Nintendo Direct started, and shortly after, Iwata told us to take a look. The title revealed was Super Mario 3D World, a sequel to Super Mario 3D Land on the 3DS. Nintendo likes to say they put smiles on their fans' faces. They sure do. Honestly, I didn't see a ton of people excited, or if they were, it felt like they were going, okay, Mario game. Needed that. I don't think anybody was beyond disgusted. I just felt the entire world during this announcement go, huh. What made 3D Land so great was its use of the 3DS hardware that was designed for that handheld. So taking that and putting a sequel with the exact same structure on Wii U, it was underwhelming. There's no other way to put it. It didn't look bad, but it screamed just another Mario game. And that was my biggest issue with it. That plastic, basic art style that the new Super Mario Bros. Games had, and while it was running in HD, Galaxy and the Wii still looked good. It had a superior art style and lighting. Just comparing the lava in this scene from the trailer to that game shows the problem here. There was no fanfare to this announcement. Even the trailer felt like it didn't care. This wasn't a big moment. Nintendo wasn't treating this like Mario's next big step. This felt like a press release made a trailer. Mario's in 3D on the Wii U. They were the first ones brave enough to do it. The trailer itself is fine. It just came out at a bad time. There was legitimate Mario fatigue. So many games that felt too similar to each other, all releasing back to back within the last 4 years. This new Mario game needed to be on the same level as Mario Galaxy in terms of a big idea that wow. But the trailer just showed green plains, ice world, lava, some new enemies here and there, but is that really enough to make the game stand out? We were getting to the point where seeing mice got us excited, like, wow, that's new! There's something original for once. It's clear, huh? What? they did show off some more unique elements, like the cat suit, the game's new power-up, the Wii U gamepad functionality, letting you rub gophers.
Like, I can't already do that.
Multiple playable characters, Luigi, Peach, Toad, all with unique characteristics based on their appearances in Super Mario Bros. 2, and you can play 4-player multiplayer with them. An awesome addition, being the first mainline 3D Mario game with 4-player co-op, but it's already so similar to the new Super Mario Bros. Games, and those already had multiplayer. If anything, this didn't help differentiate the game. This just brought 3D Mario that much closer to new Super Mario Bros. 3D World was warmly received. The people who got to demo the game said it was a ton of fun, but these are gaming journalists we're talking about here. Do they know how to have fun? I didn't hate what I was seeing. It was just hard to get excited when it felt like Nintendo wasn't even excited. This wasn't the game they needed at the time. It felt like a very ho-hum announcement. They weren't immensely proud or confident. It was just a new Mario game. Buy it. You can tell many fans were upset that 3D World wasn't a regular 3D Mario due to them releasing a YouTube video during E3 showing how the game does in fact have camera control. Oh, come on, man, that's a technicality.
This game just didn't really do much for me initially when it was revealed. I mean, I was obviously going to play it. I mean, look at me. But it felt like a 3D Mario that was created just to put out something quickly on Wii U, rather than something created out of a lust to do something creative and new with Mario. It's like they just took what they did with 3D Land and just rolled with it. It was the latest 3D Mario game they made, so it was probably the easiest to do a new 3D Mario in that style. You just take 3D Land, spruce it up in HD, put it on the Wii U, boom! That's how game development works. Those lazy swine at Nintendo thought they could just make a video game when I wanted a video game in space! But it turns out all of life's problems can be and will be solved on October 1st, 2013.
The second trailer for the game kicked off an October Nintendo Direct, with this one blowing everybody away. While it may not live up to previous 3D titles, at the very least, 3D World looked like an actual video game instead of the product of Nintendo hitting Make Mario on the keyboard. So much personality, big band jazz music played against cutscenes, boss fights, new power-ups, crazy level design. This isn't just a 3D new Super Mario Bros. Game. It showed a lot of that creativity and passion we came to expect from a big 3D Mario like this. It's just in a more simplified format, all edited incredibly well into the trailer too. It's pretty clear why this trailer got everybody excited, and this one started a revolution. Back at E3 2013, the game was initially set for a December 2013 launch, which was bizarre for a Mario title. The month of Christ! That's a Xenoblade thing. They ended up swapping the initial release month with Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, finally confirming a November 22nd, 2013 release date, alongside Mario and Luigi Wii remotes coinciding with the release month. Nintendo also uploaded an overview trailer for the game a few weeks later, but just called it the October trailer. Then what the hell was this? I guess Nintendo was really worried that people didn't know Motley Boss Blob was in the game, so they released another trailer a week before release, pretty much spoiling any secrets the title had to offer. I mean, that's cool, but I doubt they would actually have Motley Boss Blob in it. Those tricky bitches. The trailer showed off almost all major secret unlockables, like, why? I guess because 3D World had a ton of competition on release day. Not only was Nintendo releasing it alongside The Legend of Zelda: A Link Between Worlds on 3DS, not only was it launching the same day as the Xbox One and its launch games, but it was releasing the same day as Mario Party Island Tour.
And the Xbox One never recovered.
3D World was met with critical acclaim across the board, with many considering it the highlight of all the November 22nd releases. 10 out of 10s was going around, calling it the reason to buy a Wii U. Must have been a 10 out of 10 minus. Nintendo really pushed the game, making YouTube videos where they didn't know how to capture their own gameplay. They were serious. Commercials, which just highlighted the problem with Nintendo ads during the Wii U era. Lights, child on the couch, playing Wii U, game on the screen. Game world expands to living room. Mom satisfied, dad's like, whoa! Narrator tries to make anything sound appealing to your parents. Clear pipes are in this family fun Mario 3D Wii U only for the Wii U. Scene.
I played this game at launch and was so excited to do so. I followed everything up until the game's release, and it all looked like so much crazy fun, and I played through the whole thing, completed as much as I possibly could, and was satisfied knowing that this was an excellent Mario game. Though as time went on, I became more critical of the game, considering I didn't remember a ton of it. It wasn't that memorable. So I decided to take a critical second look at it, and now I'm going to take a critical third look at it, because I need to up my credit score. You'll be amazed what likes with that.
Here it is, Super Mario 3D World. This title is horrible. It's bad enough the logo is an exact copy of 3D Lands, but with a cattail photoshopped on, but I've heard so many people get this name wrong, getting it confused with 3D Land and the original Mario World. It makes me so angry. Why does the background look like a transparent PNG? Well, the box art is very appealing, I'll give it that, but to the normal bystander, what makes this Mario game different from this one, you know? The Galaxy, he's in space, sunshine, water pack. This one, it's just the Mario game having a ball. I mean, I guess there's 2 of them and 50% of the room is a cat. I don't know, it's just fun Mario adventure. That's what this says, which is exactly what this says. And this says, this was back whenever anybody would see the Nintendo Network logo on a Wii U box, they'd shit their pants.
I covered up for that reason.
When this box art came out, many assumed this meant online multiplayer. In reality, it's just Miiverse support. What a cockty. Should have included the text, "It's not what you think." The back of the box has to specify anything new here. It makes it sound like this is a re-release of an old game with new content. We'll get to that. So many parallels between this and Mario 3D Land. The box design, the game disc, and card follow the same format. Even the manual takes design cues from 3D Land. Except the spine, that takes cues from Mario Galaxy 2. I wish my spine did. Well, let's give this game a 3rd chance. I thought it was excellent the first time, just good the 2nd time, so it better be fucking atrocious this time or I'm pissed.
Expected Mario to say that.
Super Mario 3D World kicks things off with a Greek tragedy. The king's all here during fireworks and they notice a pipe. Clear pipe.
This isn't the Mario I know.
They fix it and out pops a Sprixie princess, a fairy that is begging for help. Bowser captured the other ones. This is a direct reference to those 2D art pieces shown before each world in Super Mario 3D Land, but this is the only time it ever happens in this game, which is...
It is I, a picky bitch.
Bowser squirts out of the pipe, and I have to say, I love the more classic cartoony style 3D World goes for. Bowser's animations here and how Mario and Luigi fix the clear pipe feels straight out of a Saturday morning cartoon. So, Bowser's kidnapping fairies now.
Am I really gonna complain about that hobby? Look at my wall.
The gang falls in the pipe and into the Sprixie Kingdom. Could you tell? That's why the box art refers to this as a whole new world. This isn't the Mushroom Kingdom, it's the Sprixie Kingdom, which I feel like is a huge missed opportunity. At no point in this game does it feel like this isn't the Mushroom Kingdom, making it a big deal that we're not in the Mushroom Kingdom anymore. I feel like they could have run with the idea that we're in a completely different area now by introducing strange new environments. It's a wonderful little detail how the characters have this urgency right after the opening cutscene on the world map. They did that in 3D Land, but now the world map is its own thing. You can roam around it like a mini level. It's incredibly limited though. You can jump and sort of run, but that's about it. There are a few coins scattered throughout and very minor secrets to uncover, but this feels like they wanted to give the game something that felt like a hub world, like Peach's Castle or the Comet Observatory, and I can see the potential in this world map style. It's genuinely really intuitive, and the fact they hide a few small little secrets here and there shows that it could be so much more. But that's all it does. It just makes me think this could be so much more. Like, imagine if you had the full moveset you had in the game's actual levels. Imagine if there were small platforming challenges or even more secrets to find. No, it's basically a new Super Mario Bros. Map that you can freely walk around. Cool that we have that ability, but it just makes me wish they did more with it. On to the first stage. Shocking. Green Plains, we have some control of Mario. Your movement is locked to 8 directions only, which is less than 3D Lands, which still only had 12 directions you could point Mario in. It just snaps you into the rough area you're pointing in, which isn't a huge deal. It isn't like the Link's Awakening remake where Link just juts from direction to direction. There's some animation to make it look really smooth, but it still lacks the precision you got in previous games. This was because 3D World was designed with the lowest common denominator in mind, the Wii Remote on its side. The game supports a ton of control schemes. The Wii U Gamepad, Pro Controller, Wii Remote and Nunchuck, the Wii Classic Controller and Classic Controller Pro, or just the Wii Remote on its side. This is disgusting. Ever tried to play a 3D game with a Wii Remote on its side?
Ever kill a ghost?
To make for an even playing field, even if you have a controller with a full analog stick, you still get that 8-way movement, which again, isn't a big deal. I don't really care, it's just kind of an odd quirk of the game. If anything, the 8-way movement was a smart move considering how the rest of the game is designed. Jumping on a Goomba, if you had 360 directions to jump in, it's more likely you could miss. Here, with how it's basically a 2D game in 3D, I think the limited directions make sense. Mario retains a lot of the classic 3D moves he's had throughout the years. Long jump, side somersault, wall jump, ground pound, roll, it all feels perfectly fine, but you still have to hold the run button, which is taken from the 2D games in 3D Land. 3D World has